and then
yeah,
we can
I can do that.
reschedule.
Okay.
Thanks. So first up,
So
Devarajen.
yeah, no problem.
You can share your screen.
Yes, I will. At least. Good.
Excellent. The stage is yours. It's fine. I can see.
Yep, I can start if you want.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity. So, as probably some of you know, I'm part of the WIOGEN group. I'm into the aquaculture group with a few of our colleagues, Probert, Caroline, Stephanie and Caroline are from Kenya, and Probert from Madagascar. So today I'm going to present a presentation on the role of aquaculture for food security, job creation, and poverty alleviation in Western Indian Ocean region, and we'll look into some recommendation on policy to decision makers for economic growth. Yep, it is. So the methodology we have used is basically a review of some of the already published recent publication on the topics. There have been few publication on the topics in the region, but our study will mainly focus on the three countries: Madagascar, Mauritius, and Kenya. And we've chosen these three countries because Mauritius is a small island development state, Kenya is from the continent, and Madagascar is a large island. And we are looking at four main questions. So how aquaculture will contribute in addressing the issue of food security, unemployment, and poverty alleviation. What are the main obstacles that hinder the development of aquaculture? What are the main opportunities for aquaculture development in the region? And some of the recommendations for decision makers. So I think first thing we should probably do is to define food security. So food security is achieved when all people at all times has physical and economic access to adequate and sufficient, safe and nutritious food to meet the dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. So I have put down here some parameters on the three different countries. Parameters, some indicators I've gathered from FAO, World Bank, and SADC. So just to see the different, the three different countries, as you see, Mauritius is very tiny compared to the two others. But however, Mauritius share the biggest ocean territory, the EZ, which is 2.3 million square kilometers. We are dealing with three different countries of different income group. You know, Madagascar is very low income. Mauritius is upper middle since 2021. Due to COVID, we have downgraded a bit. And Kenya is considered as lower middle income countries. So as you will see here, the aquaculture production in 2008 and fisheries as follows. And I just highlighted the Mauritian one because you see a big gap between capture fisheries, what we are producing, and what we are basically consuming, and which shows indicate that we have a trade deficit and we are really dependent on importation of food. I've also found some data on the contribution of food fish to local diet. As an island, Mauritius is 23.6, contribution. It's not percentage, sorry, there's a mistake here. It's not percentage, it's kilo per capita. Madagascar is still at 4.2 and Kenya is 7. It's not very uncommon for island countries to be very dependent on ocean resources as food. And the FAO and World Health Organization recommend that in 2025, we should reach around 19 kilo per capita. And to achieve this, we'll see in Madagascar that there's a need for a significant increase in fish supply, around 27%. And to reach 27% is to reach the actual 4.2 kilo. But to reach the 19 recommended one, there's a need for 405% increase in the supply. Mauritius, we already reached above a 19 kilo, and I couldn't find, sorry, I couldn't find data for Kenya. So let's see, I'm going to go forward 3 different countries. Let's see how aquaculture is contributing or can contribute to food security and job creation. This one is Madagascar. Madagascar globally, internationally, globally, food insecurity affects around 800 million people. For Madagascar, 42% of children under 5 are affected by malnutrition. And the last few years, in the southern part of the island, 1.6 inhabitants are suffering from famine due to drought and caused by climate change. In the fisheries sector, fishing and aquaculture contributes to around 6% of Madagascar GDP, but there's a potential of going up to 200,000 tons per year in terms of production. Employ around 100,000 people are involved in this fisheries sector, and 1.5% are directly dependent on the fisheries sector. The situation like it is in many countries in the region, there is a situation of overfishing, mainly in the coastal, and most of our small-scale fisheries are facing overexploitation of fisheries stock. So in Madagascar, some of the farm species are shrimp, sea cucumber, seaweed, crabs, shellfish, and spirulina. The factors that hinder mariculture development in Madagascar, the first one is disease. As you know, with shrimp's production, there's a lot of diseases around. White spot has been a big issue, a drop of production from 12,000 tons to around 3,000 tons per year. And second one is marine spatial planning. It's not very well developed, but lead to conflicts between different users of the same resources. There's a lack of knowledge transfer. We will see this in all 3 different countries, lack of knowledge from scientists to community, and also a lack of knowledge in terms of aquaculture. The activities mainly focus on non-direct edible product, but is not contributing directly to food security, but actual activities around mariculture. And then one of the big problems for Madagascar is most of the aqua feed are imported instead of being produced locally. There's a lack of know-how on production of aqua feed. Their production system has poor performance, again, because there's a lack of knowledge. And there's an incomplete control of the different breeding techniques. These are the different factors that is stopping further development of mariculture in Madagascar. There's also a lack of good quality food manufacturing infrastructure. High production costs. I think here there's a problem in terms of the species we are choosing. And there's low level of communication between stakeholders, lack of technical and financial means, inadequate equipment and facilities for research in aquaculture. Research leads to innovation, and this is something which is really missing in Madagascar. And there's no development plan for alternative species for aquaculture. Commercial aquaculture is highly dependent on demand for price imposed by the importer. Here, we would like the government to step in and start tempering these fluctuation in price. And lack of support to vulnerable farmers. That is, Madagascar, most of aquaculture, mainly in the coastal region, needs community-based actions, and some of these vulnerable farmers are facing to lack of funds, acquisition of materials, feeds, and fingerlings. Opportunities, however, in Madagascar is very recently there has been creation of Ministry of Fisheries and Blue Economy. As you probably know, our colleagues Kobe is now the Minister for Blue Economy and Fisheries in Madagascar, which is a very good thing. Ongoing process to elaborate strategic orientation to develop blue economy in Madagascar. Aquaculture is the future, they know that, which is good, both marine and freshwater. There's opportunities for the elaboration of national strategic plan for the development of aquaculture. Existing project with Swiofish 2, which is funded by World Bank. And there is also development of seaweed farming and other aquaculture activities such as sea cucumber and crab farming. We are getting support from different partners, FAO, UNDP, GIZ, and UE. and development of research activities. We are now developing some research centers like the CNRO, and our existing regional network is also helping for governance and technical exchange. WIOGEN and WIMS are part of it, and there are support from non-state actors too. In terms of perspective and recommendation to decision makers, there is a need for an increased production up to 5% annually, improvement of research and development, involvement of youth, that's the gender inequality Madagascar is facing in terms of mariculture, professionalization of aquaculture activities, that is, do not consider aquaculture as an alternative activities anymore. It is a real economic sector. Development of guidelines for small-scale farmers. Community-based aquaculture needs certain support, and the small-scale farmers do not have it at the moment. And identification and mapping of suitable sites was to decrease the conflicts between the different users of the same resources. Creation of training centers to facilitate knowledge, and sensitization of fishermen community to shift from fisheries to aquaculture. We'll see more or less the same thing in Mauritius too. So Mauritius, like many small island development states, is heavily dependent on importation of foodstuff, as I mentioned before. Over a year ago, Mauritius didn't have any problem with food security. However, when COVID came, we faced some really big issues because of a shortage in supply of labor, tightening of international trade, which relates to the price of foodstuff in Mauritius start increasing, and there is a lack of certain product because the shipping has been affected. So this pandemic has highlighted how vulnerable the country is due to its excessive dependence on imports. The country is in need of a more resilient food production system that is a decentralized one that reduces the distances between the production and to fall. The sources of aquatic protein in Mauritius, like many SADC, we are heavily dependent on marine resources. We do have around 2.3 million square kilometers of EEZ around, which is at the moment really not exploited at all. The contribution of aquatic protein to the local diet is, as I said, around 20 to 23%, 20 to 23 kilo per capita. The inshore fisheries mainly produce local reef fish, but they are heavily exploited in Mauritius. Overfishing has seen a marked increase in importation of frozen food from Madagascar and other Southeast Asian countries. We actually import over 75% of our seafood for local consumption, and for a small island development state, this is I would say, it's a real shame. And now the government has started putting some restriction. They have put a ban on importation of certain type of fish, just to a kind of strategy put forward to promote local food production and sales. The contribution of aquaculture to food security and job creation. Aquaculture stands as a good candidate to help a country to build its food production resiliency. The small-scale aquaculture sector in Mauritius is very much underdeveloped, and there are opportunities now to develop that sector. According to the latest statistics, that sector employs around 29,000 people, and there's a big gap for gender gap. Only around 4% of women are employed. The aquaculture sector in itself employs 129 persons only, 18 of them are women. And I would say these 129 people who are employed in aquaculture, around 80% are from one commercial company. We have only one commercial company in the country. What is hindering the development of aquaculture in the country? Lack of access to land. There's a lot of conflicts between the tourism industry and real estate development. All the coastal lands are very high value and difficult to have access to develop aquaculture. Lack of technical knowledge. Although Mauritius has a lot of skilled labor, the knowledge in terms of farming of the sea, of mariculture and aquaculture is lacking. Traditionally, Mauritians are used to land farming, but not the sea. So we need more training in this stage, in this section. There's a problem of legal framework also. There's a general ineffective governance in the fisheries sector and aquaculture subsector in the country. There's a need for the government to recognize aquaculture subsector as an economic sector in itself and include it into the current fisheries regulation. And also there's a need to adopt an ecosystem approach to aquaculture, have a more holistic approach for aquaculture development in Mauritius. As I mentioned before, the conflict between stakeholders using the same resources and tourism industry versus food production. In 2018, this conflict has reached a level where government has banned any further development in the lagoons because the lagoons were used for all tourism activities. And luckily, or I would say luckily, I would say one thing, thanks to COVID-19 pandemic, they have realized that we need to start producing food, and they have lifted this ban, or in process of lifting it. We have securities issues because resources at sea tend to be considered as common resources, so it's become more challenging to delimit areas at sea. If it is on land, you can fence it. At sea, it's more difficult. There's a general lack of trust in aquaculture activities in Mauritius. Many people think that it is considered as a polluting activity. But if we choose the right species and the right systems, such as integrated multi-trophic aquaculture, it shouldn't be an issue. The main opportunities to aquaculture development in Mauritius is we have 13 marine concessions inside and outside the lagoon, which has been dedicated for mariculture and aquaculture. In addition, with that, we have 2.3 million square kilometers of EZ. I realize that none or majority of it cannot be used for aquaculture, but we do have a lot of outer islands like Saint-Brandon, Agalega, where we can develop around these islands aquaculture. Mauritius is surrounded by pristine water quality, and I think this is a plus when we start producing product which is in good water quality, disease-free, and eventually we can look for certain types of labeling, such as the ASC. And Mauritius is also phasing out the sugarcane production. And there has been now a lot of land masses on the coast, which is close to water, which is being freed, and we could have access to this land if the government, step in and start putting some restriction on tourism and real estate development. The country has access to skilled labor, which is, as I mentioned, is good, although we still need training, but this training needs to start from very early start in secondary school even. Mauritius has now a series of policies and schemes for the Economic Development Board, which is a hub to attract foreign investment in the country. For example, we have tax holidays, VAT and duty exemption, air freight rebate on chilled and fresh seafood products. In addition, the country has a stable political system and create a safe environment for foreign investment. The island has also a well-established free port system that serves as a duty-free logistic, distribution, and marketing hub for the region. So we have an established market for a seafood product. For example, we have established market with EU, which is not very easy to get. I forgot to put US on that. We do have US market also, Asian and other African countries. We are now looking, we are developing a trade relationship with China. I think we have sealed the deal early this year, so that's done. And we are looking for trade relationship with Russia, South Korea, and Brazil. And the island has also a well-established support system for the development of small to medium enterprise. So this has been an engine for the economic growth in Mauritius, as SME contributes to around 40% of the GDP and 55% of the total employment. And aquaculture being a business, we should tap into that support system. And more recently, a few months ago, Mauritius is looking into developing a national aquatic animal health strategy. Some recommendation for decision makers: we need to recognize aquaculture as a potential sector, economic sector to boost the blue economic growth. Promote horizontally integrated aquaculture companies instead of vertically integrated companies, which often has a much bigger impact on the ecosystem. Unfortunately, at the moment, the government is going to big vertically integrated companies, and we should change that and look into more development of more SMEs into aquaculture. put in place an aquaculture development plan. We do not have one for our country, and this is a big issue. And use the SME Mauritius should act as a forefront in enabling the aquaculture sector development. For example, we should break down the value chain and allow different SMEs to take over part of the value chain. For example, a company specialized in hatch production, another one in grow out, another one in processing and marketing. And also what is lacking, using some certain decision-making tools for which species and system we should use for aquaculture. I have done one, for example, one I've used, which is the prioritization and diagnostic matrix. So what is this? I've looked at all the benefits and feasibility of certain types of aquaculture in Mauritius. In terms of benefit, we look at the economic, socio-economic benefits and also the capacity building. In terms of feasibility, I've looked into economic, technical, biological, social feasibilities, governance, and risk. And I asked, different questions and send this question to different stakeholders. And they score it from 0, 1, 2, and 3, as you can hear. And I've plotted the different, for example, here is for species. And you will notice that there are different species plotted on this graph. And I've highlighted 2, which is really interesting. When it comes to red hybrid tilapia, which is a freshwater, the feasibility is good, the benefit is very low because Mauritius doesn't eat freshwater species. But our company now is using this species because it's a species of tilapia which can hold very high salinity, and we are running it into marine strain, and the benefit and feasibility become very high. These are the types of aquaculture we should be looking. Sea cucumber, which is an unfed species, which is good. And this type of decision-making tools is lacking and is greatly needed in the country. In terms of Kenya, in Kenya, the food insecurity trend is worrying as the population is rapidly increasing against an annually declining arable land per capita and consequences increase in food prices. Aquaculture has so far been recognized as an important opportunity to enhance household food security in developing countries. There is evidence of a contribution of aquaculture to nutritional security for direct fish consumption and income stability among vulnerable groups through involvement in aquaculture value chains linkages. Kenya, has a favorable climate, coupled with minimum requirement for space and labor for fish management, provide a valuable opportunity for aquaculture. Kenya has done a lot in terms of inland farming activities. We have a national program for freshwater aquaculture, which has worked very well, has boosted the production. I think it was from around 7,000 metric ton in 2007 to up to 25,000 currently. So which works. This aquaculture sector, as I mentioned, is dominated by freshwater, but there's a need for a change, a paradigm shift towards marine aquaculture. Mariculture in Kenya has made some progress over the past decade for the development of simple, innovative technologies, such as construction of inexpensive ponds, pens, and cages. The culture species that need limited water management and low quality food or low protein intake, for example, milkfish, mullet, mud crabs, and prawn. The factors that hinder the mariculture development in Kenya, there's here again a lack of knowledge of biology of cultured species, unreliable funding, conflicting government policies, lack of capital investment, lack of access to international markets, limited technology expertise, and lack of data. We don't have production statistics, and as you know, we need data to be able to move forward. The main opportunities, as I mentioned before, were in 2009, the government funded the National Farming Program, but this is mainly for freshwater. This was aimed at stimulating economic development, foster economic recovery, and create employment and alleviation of poverty. Even though there's a potential for fish farming in Kenya, there's no long-term plan for aquaculture, and this makes it difficult to quantify fish production targets. The development and wider adoption of aquaculture can be seen as a significant basis for improving household food security and over-needed welfare. The support of a mix of small-scale and large-scale aquaculture accelerated roles in promoting macroeconomic growth. And they say need for deeper analysis is needed before causal linkages can be inferred and poverty and food security benefits of aquaculture can be claimed. So the recommendation to decision makers in Kenya is there is a need for more public and private investment, appropriate national aquaculture policies. There's a need for a holistic approach to aquaculture linked to rural development. And promoting and increasing aquaculture productivity will not only contribute towards increased production of nutritious food to reduce food security, but will also allow the country to produce a surplus for export. And we need more empirical evidence should be collected on varied opportunities of aquaculture in terms of employment, food consumption, and food security in general. So to conclude, what I'll try to do is find some of the common factors that hinder the development, which really needs to be looked into in priority. And here, I would hope that we could use the platform of WIOGEN to exchange knowledge, to do some transfer. As I mentioned, there's a lack of strategic aquaculture development plan. I think Madagascar is developing one. I'm not sure about Kenya. In Mauritius, we don't have one. And this plan should clearly state the priority intervention areas, strategies, objectives, key performance indicators, and targeted output. And ideally, it should adopt an ecosystem approach to aquaculture. Link the development plan to proper national aquaculture policies. We hope this will be done. Lack of technical knowledge in farming and techniques in aquaculture business development. And here, WIOGEN can intervene, I hope so, in terms of transform know-how. For example, Mauritians will learn a lot from people in Madagascar in terms of aquaculture of mud crabs and seaweed and sea cucumber. And once we've got this knowledge locally, there's a lack of extension services, and this is seen in Mauritius and all three different countries. We tend to do research, we tend to do innovation, but we do not extend it towards the local communities. Private investors do not have access to funds. Aquaculture is still considered as a risky business. We need more incentives from the government, grant, tax incentives, low interest rate, etc. A loan with low interest rate. And community-based activities still difficult to take up due to a lack of support from institutions. And reduce post-harvest handling issues, improve value addition and direct access to market. These are factors that we need to work on. And species models are not adequate for community-based activities. We need to find better models such as extractive species, unfed ones, which have a low production cost. Okay, thank you very much for your attention, and I would like to thank the contributors to this this study, Pobert and Caroline and Stephanie, and also thank you WIOGEN for the opportunity.
Thanks, Dev, for this really comprehensive overview of your findings from the three countries, and thanks for bringing WIOGEN in. I think there's great opportunity for South-South exchange on knowledge.
Yes,
I think there,
yeah,
as you pointed out yourself. And we're happy to support you if, Pobert is part of our network, and if you want to set up something, a small workshop or some, just let us know, get in touch, and I'm sure we can work on something. Is there something like this going on, just as a follow-up question, because it fits so well now? Is there interest already in a South-South transfer of or exchange of knowledge that you worked on already?
Not from my knowledge. When I was working at the ministry, I initiated some, and my contract is finished now, so I don't know who has take over from my initiatives. I don't think there is right at the moment, but as you know, Pobert is now the Minister for Blue Economy. There are exchanges. I'm hoping we can do there, and we could use him as an an NG as a startup to start getting these. Next week, I'm receiving some of the developers of sea cucumber aquaculture from Madagascar in Mauritius, and I hope there will be certain, between private companies. I'm now into the private sector. We could exchange, we could do some exchanges, and we are hoping to get some exchanges between EU too. So this will help, and I think WIOGEN is great for that, because when I was reviewing this, I could see, although Mauritius is considered as a developed or whatever type of countries, we are mainly focused here in Mauritius. For us to develop aquaculture is mainly in terms of developing small SMEs, small medium enterprises, while Madagascar and Kenya is mainly community-based actions to develop. We can see these are two different things, but I don't think so, because I think in Mauritius we have we could do a SME in terms of seaweed production. When we look at around, there's no knowledge in it, and going to Madagascar and acquire knowledge in it will be great, and we have space to do that. And the same thing, Madagascar want to develop SMEs, come to Mauritius. We've got very good infrastructure in place, very good support system, which has been working. When you see SME is contributing to 40% of a GDP, is a big thing. And they want this to increase up to 55% in the next 10 years.
True. Yeah, thanks for sharing that insight, and please get in touch if you want our assistance in setting some exchanges up.